y'all, it's me Alex. Today I am going to be doing a review on the Igneous Cosmetics Deep Blue palette. So I'm going to do a little review, and I have two looks that I filmed using this, including the one I'm wearing on my eyes today. So I've actually had this palette in my collection for a bit. You know what, let me zoom you out a little bit so you can see me a little bit more. There we go, I think that's a little bit of a better look. So I've had this palette since sometime last fall. I'm not exactly sure when I bought it, but at the time Igneous Cosmetics was having a sale on their Etsy, so they are an exclusively Etsy based brand, and I had been lusting after this palette for a while, and I've seen really good things about them. I had seen my friend Leanna of Chronically Chic use a lot of their stuff, so I wanted to give this palette a shot. As you can see, it is very much like blues and greens and purples. I had also decided to get this one because I was between this one and the Hasina 2 by Blush Tribe, and they have very similar color stories. This one is just obviously a lot more condensed because this one's only 6 pans, whereas that one is like 12 pans, I think, maybe even more. Spoiler alert, I really like this palette. Now, this is very different from what I'm used to using, at least in terms of a color scheme. As you can see, the look that I've gotten is a lot more muted than what I would normally go for, a little bit lighter and a little bit more pastel than what I normally use on my eyes. I am typically drawn to more jewel tones and earth tones. The shimmers are very jewel tone, but the matte transition shades, those are more pastel, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. It's something that I'm just very much not used to working with, but from what I've noticed in a lot of their color schemes is that it's very colorful, but also like a softer way of doing color, which I think is really, really interesting because we don't often see that. Because I feel like the way that we most often see color done is with like the bright neons and rainbows, which isn't bad, but you know, it's kind of what we get a lot. And this to me really kind of breaks the mold, which I think is super duper cute. The mattes, there are two mattes here, this blue and this violet lavender shade here, and they're very, very powdery, which I know some people don't like, but for me personally, I really appreciate it because powdery in my mind always equals pigmented, especially like when you're going for a more transition shade or a more pastel shade. You do want it to be like more pigmented. So if it was something that was a little bit more vibrant, you wouldn't need it to be as like pigmented as it is, but with the shadow colors like these, it is definitely something that you want to be more pigmented. These shimmers are a little bit, I'm not going to say more difficult to work with, I'm going to say that they're different from a lot of other shimmers. So these are really pretty. I love these shimmers. They just have to be built up a little bit more because I think they are pressed a bit more, they feel a bit more stiff in the pan than a lot of like other shimmers. You see a lot of like in like Juvia's Place palettes, for example, the shimmers there are very soft and as such they're very, very pigmented, whereas with these they're pressed a little bit more tightly, so I kind of have to go on with a couple swipes, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. So all in all, I'm really happy with this palette. I've been listing after a few others on their Etsy page. They have like a little matte rainbow-ish one that is all like teals and greens, which I think that might be my next purchase from them. I messaged them on Instagram because as of this moment that I'm filming this, their Etsy shop is out of palettes specifically. So I asked if they were discontinuing palettes. They said no, that they had just sold out of all of their palettes and would be restocking soon, and that they would let me know when they would restock. So never fear, this palette is gonna come back. This isn't like goodbye forever for this palette, which is really nice because, I mean, even if they were just doing single shadows, I would still buy from them. I would still just get their single shadows. But since I am someone who prefers a little bit more curated stuff, so I prefer a palette, I think maybe in the future when I'm using this, I might pair it with other palettes, since I do think it would still be more flattering for me to dip it in with some deeper shades and deepen it up, since pastels aren't the best look for me. I love all of the shades in this palette, so I'm not gonna pick favorites. I love this green as an inner corner highlight, and also just like in general. So long story short, this is just a really, really good product, and I 10 out of 10 would recommend you picking this up. The shipping is a little much if you are in the United States, but I don't care that much because that is what people in other countries who order makeup from the United States experience like on the daily. So I don't care that much. Like, it's time we get a taste of the medicine that we dish out to everybody else, let's be honest. So yeah, now I'm just gonna get into the two looks that I've done because I think that's one of the best ways that we can show how a palette looks is by just like demonstrating it. So here we go. Okay, so I've already primed my lids with some concealer because right now I can't find my NYX HD like primer that I normally use, so I'm just gonna use my concealer like I do. The first shadow I'm going to put in is this matte lavender shade. It is called Violet Coral, and I'm going to put that in the crease. And you can see that this is pretty pigmented, but it's a nice little transition shade, and I'm really just going to kind of work on building it up to its full pigmentation here. The next shade I am going to take is this purple shade right here, which I think is Coralline Algae. And I'm doing a little bit of a halo eye with this. I'm taking it on an e.l.f. eyeshadow brush, and I'm putting this on the outer and inner corner. And I'm going to go back in with more of the crease shade to kind of blend those together. Now I'm going to take this green shade, which I think is Spirulina, and I'm going to put that on the center of my lid using this brush that came from the Urban Decay Electric palette. And as you can see, this one needs a little bit of building up, but I think it does a good job once it's on there. Now I'm going to take more of the darker purple shade and put that on the outer corner to just kind of make some room, make it a little more halo-y. And I'm going to blend the matte shade into the crease again, because that's how we do looks here. And I'm going to take that same shade and put it on the lower lash line. And now since this palette doesn't really have like an inner corner highlight or anything, I'm just going to use a shade that I used as my highlighter today, which is this Wet n Wild highlighter in Blossom Glow. And I'm just going to stick that in my inner corners real quick. And I'm going to use one of the shades from my Pan That palette here, and I'm going to use that matte white shade. Any matte white will do because matte whites are easy to find. I'm going to put that on my brow bone. And to make this look kind of fit me a little bit more and give it a little bit more of an oomph, I'm going to take my NYX Epic ink liner and do some wing liner. Now I'm going to curl my lashes using my Ardell eyelash curler. And I will finish off the eyes with my Milk Makeup Kush mascara. And on my lips, I'm going to use this e.l.f. liquid lipstick in Praline. And this is the finished first look. Okay, so for this look, I have now bought a new NYX HD eyeshadow base, so I'm going to put that as my eye primer. So for my transition shade for this look, I'm going to take this blue here, which I believe is called Powder Blue Tang. And I'm just using a Wet n Wild crease brush. And I didn't show this in the last one, but you can see that these shadows are very powdery. You can see all of the kick up that has kind of gone on there, which I don't think is a bad thing because powdery shadows mean that they are going to be very pigmented. And especially since these are a little bit more on the pastel side, that's actually a pretty, to me, that's a good sign. I appreciate that in these shadows, but I'm blending that into my crease as my transition shade. This one is going to lean a little bit more on the blue side. And I'm putting that on the outer corner as well. Now for my lid, I am going to use this purple shade here, which is Black Cat Basslet. So this is a little more on the purpley side rather than the bluey purple here. And I also really love pairing this shade also with like red eyeshadow. I think that's a really cool way to use it as well if you want to kind of take it as more of like a single shadow rather than using it with the rest of the palette. Then to kind of deepen up the outer corner, I'm going to use this blue shade Giant Clam here in the middle. There we go. And I'm using that on an e.l.f. blending eye brush here on the outer corner, using it to kind of blend the transition shade with the lid shade. And yes, it's technically like a satiny shimmer, but I still think that it can blend pretty well as like a crease-ish shade. Now I'm going to go back with a powder blue shade and just use that along my lower lash line. And now for my inner corner highlight, I'm going to take the green shade Spirulina. I'm then just going to use a white shade out of the palette I'm using for my that palette, excuse me, and put that as my brow bone. Now to kind of make it so that this eye look doesn't wash me out too much, I am going to use my NYX Epic Ink Liner, and I'm going to do some wing liner. Normally in a like multiple looks one palette video, I try and not do eyeliner with every look, but I feel like for this one, in order to make it flattering for me personally and with my features, this is kind of the way that I make this palette work. So and now I'm just going to very quickly finish off the rest of my face and I'll be back. Okay, and so for this look, the lipstick I'm wearing is Catnip by Anastasia Beverly Hills. And so this is my finished look. And that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it and subscribe down below if you want to see more videos from me. And I will see you on my next one. Hope you'll have a wonderful day. Bye!